Episode 1 of the KMiata build was made possible by the Clarkson. This tool got us through a lot on this job. Also, we need to thank these blue towels for keeping our shop floor almost spotless. This first episode here would not have been possible without greasy hands and friendship. Without further ado, let's get into episode 1 of K-swapping a Miata. About a year ago, I decided that my NA Miata didn't have enough power. It was still a super fun car, but I wanted it to be faster. I turbocharged my car on a budget, and it almost doubled the power, and it made it way more fun on the street. Now, Matt over here with his NA is in a similar situation, but we're going a very different route to make pretty much double the stock power of a Miata. So what do we have sitting right here?
Right here we have a K24Z3, a Honda motor that's 2.4 liters, 4-cylinder. It's out of the 2011 Acura TSX.
And this is going into his Miata. So this is a swap that has been done a few times. There are a lot of pretty good videos out here on YouTube, but we're going to put our own little twist on it. We're going to be taking you through the entire build start to finish, and then we'll be doing a bunch of results comparing this car to my turboed car, to stock cars, and all in all, it's just going to be a blast working on this car, getting this motor in there, and this is going to be something super special. So there are a lot of ways for a Miata to make around 200 horsepower. Turbocharging, you could get there pretty easy. Some supercharger setups, you could also get there relatively easy. And then there's things like this, putting a K motor into a Miata. So why did you pick the K motor over something like a turbocharger or a supercharger or other swaps?
So the biggest deal for me was reliability. I want this car to be a track car, and I've been at too many events where I see a turboed or supercharged Miata that's missing sessions or spending extra time under their car for a whole host of reasons. You can still do them reliably, obviously, but I felt that this was a much easier way to reliably make around 200 horsepower.
Yeah, I like that. Naturally aspirated, you'll definitely be in good shape, because with my car, I love it. It hasn't broke so far too much, but pushing it, I'm always like, all right, what's going to break? Because no matter what, my car is a budget setup, and even on properly built setups, stuff could always still go wrong, and there's less to go wrong with a swap like this. In terms of balance of the car, is there a reason you chose this over something like an LS or a big heavy motor like that?
Yeah, for sure. This whole swap kit, according to the forums, maintains about the same weight balance, only changes the total weight of the car by around 30-ish pounds, supposedly. It's an all-aluminum block compared to the Miata's iron block, so even though it's a bigger engine, the weight turns out to be about the same. I like the doubling the horsepower. An LS is obviously a little bit more than that, and I don't know, I don't feel like I could quite handle that in this chassis.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be like the perfect way to wake this car up, make it actually quick, and maintain the Miata feel with the lightweight, nimble car, and it's going to be sweet. So if you haven't checked out the last video that I put out, it was how fast is a stock Miata. The reason we put that video out is to sort of get some benchmark tests with this car. This car, even though obviously it's not a straight line car, even with the K motor, it's still not going to be a straight line car. It did 0 to 60 in around 8.9 seconds.
Yeah, high 8s, low 9s.
Yeah, so definitely not a fast car, but we will be testing this once it's done against that. Once again, against my turbo car, against other cars, and it's going to be a good time. Now, though, we need to actually get the swap done, and there's a lot ahead of us for that. And we're gonna, in this video, be pulling the motor and the transmission out of Matt's car over here and getting it basically prepared to start moving forward, getting this swap in. Now, if you want to see all the episodes of this car right when they're done and edited, you could go over to my Patreon account, and I'll be posting everything right away there. If you want to wait to see it on this YouTube channel, you'll have to wait a little bit longer, but either way, you won't be disappointed, and this is going to be an awesome series. So before we get into actually pulling the engine out of Matt's car over here, I want to go over all the parts that we're going to use to get that K motor into this Miata. Now, Matt has picked out all these parts, and I think this is going to be a really good start for everything we need to get this motor into this car. So start out, let's just go over all of these parts.
Sweet. So first up here we have the intake manifold. I really like this piece. It's a whole cast unit, all aluminum. It has all the nice machine surfaces for different things that have to mount to it. I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome piece. And before we get too far into this, all of this is a KMiata swap kit, plus some other parts that we're going to be using to make this work together. So KMiata swap kit is the basis for the swap that we're using.
Oh yeah, they make an excellent swap kit that gets it about as close to plug and play as I can get. So I'm really happy with what I've seen so far.
And that's what we're looking for this build. We want to try to make it as easy as possible for ourselves. My turbo setup was extremely DIY, which meant that I put in a lot of time getting it to work and making custom parts, and we're hoping that with this kit, it's going to be fairly straightforward to get this motor into this car. So that's the goal with this build. What about electronics? What are we going to use to run this car?
So speaking of plug and play, KPower actually offers a whole plug and play engine harness for this engine. It's going to connect to all the sensors, all the injectors, everything on the engine, and bring it right back to the ECU, which is actually right here. So this is an ECU out of, I think I bought this one out of like an O2 RSX, and I sent it out to Honda. And you can't see it in here, but they installed their chip in this ECU. So I'll be able to tune it, be able to modify it, and it'll work with this engine and this car.
So that makes it a tunable OEM ECU, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Next up, we have some more really nicely machined and manufactured parts over here. Take us through what we got in this box.
All right, so first up, we got the transmission adapter plate. So this will bolt up to the back of the K engine, and then the Miata stock 5-speed will be able to bolt up to the other side of this.
Yeah, so that's going to be sweet. And then clutch-wise, he has a Flying Miata Stage 1 clutch in this car. That's going to be retained for at least the initial phases of this while we have the stock K motor in there, which will be a while until we decide we want more power eventually, probably.
Definitely.
Yeah. But to start, that's what we're going to be using driveline-wise. This car does have what we are almost positive is a 4.3 Torsen. It's definitely a Torsen, but based on our 0 to 60 testing, we think it's a 4.3, so should be pretty sweet with this motor. Next up in here, we have a custom oil pan. Matt could take us through why we need this oil pan.
Absolutely. So the biggest reason you need this oil pan, as you can see, is this big cutout right here. So the stock oil pan has no such cutout, and this is a very tall motor. So it wouldn't fit under the hood and over the subframe like that. So this gives you a few extra inches where the stock subframe slides under here, and you can get the engine down a little bit lower.
Sweet.
So this is the adapter harness. It works in addition to the full engine harness that we just showed. This is mostly like under the dash wiring and adapts to all the stock Miata stuff like the fuel pump, starter relay, that kind of thing. So it'll allow the new ECU to communicate with the rest of the car.
Cool. So basically that'll allow us to maintain stock gauges, some other stock sensors and equipment that's already in the car, so we don't have to do everything custom, and it will integrate in with the car, which will be pretty sweet.
Next up, we have a big old clutch master cylinder. This is a Willwood, I think 3/4 inch master cylinder. I guess we need a larger master cylinder than stock in order to drive the Miata or the K Miata concentric slave cylinder. So this is a nice upgrade.
Dude, I've been dreaming about that part. We need to see it. Yeah, I literally had a dream last night about this flywheel after I saw it the first time, and I was like, man, that's a nice machine part. So let's take a look at the flywheel.
After the intake, I think this is my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. Look at that.
There it is.
So this is the engine side of the flywheel. You got the starter engagement ring. And on this side, you have that nice removable and replaceable friction plate. And this will allow you to run a stock Miata pressure plate and clutch disc. So put it in the same location in the transmission bell housing that you need.
Sweet. Yeah, this is like a beautiful part. The machining on this is awesome. I like that it has that replaceable friction surface, and yeah, all in all, really sweet. So Now we got like one more thing to show off, which is the exhaust setup that we have so far. It's not a complete exhaust setup yet, but we have the downpipe, and this is basically a two-piece downpipe essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. So this top piece, and which will show off one of my favorite parts about this engine.
Yep.
So this is actually the flange that bolts up to the engine itself. On the engine is an integrated exhaust manifold in the head. It's all one cast piece, which I think is really cool. It will make exhaust solutions really simple compared to the normal 4-to-1 or 4-to-2-to-1 headers.
Yeah, this is really sweet. This is something that I have not seen on any other engine. It's probably out there on other engines, but I don't know. It's not something that I've seen in my experience working on all the cars that I've worked on so far.
It's definitely a newer engine style thing. I've seen it on some of the newer BMW engines too.
Okay, cool.
And down here we have the other piece of that downpipe. So this is where it mates up to that first piece. It's actually pretty cool. It goes into like an oval section here in order to fit nicely tucked up under the transmission as it crosses over to the other side.
Sweet.
It goes back to a circle section, 2 more O2 bungs, and a nice flex pipe.
Nice. Yeah, this is all really awesome stuff. It seems like it's all really high quality. We're going to be finding out how easy this does in fact make the swap, but like we said, we're hoping that it's fairly plug and play without too many issues. And now that you saw all the parts that we're going to be using, we could start removing this engine and preparing it for the next steps of this swap. Alright, so this is going to be the last time that the 1.8 Miata motor starts in this car. I'm probably going to be taking this motor on as a spare, so you might see it in my car down the line, but in Matt's car, this is going to be the last start.
Oh man.
So right now what we're doing is just running this out of fuel. We're pulling the relay for the fuel pump, and then we'll be able to just run it out of fuel and move on with pulling this thing out. Alright, so a little update here. We got a lot pulled off the motor. We still got quite a bit of electrical connections to pull off. I'm working on getting that radiator out. Matt cleared off the stock airbox and all that, and then I think the header's next over on this side. And we're making progress. I'm not filming this too in-depth because there are a lot of other pretty good videos on pulling motors and stuff like that. So I'm really not going to start filming until we really get to the K stuff. I'm just going to do little updates like this. Only tool you need right there.
The original impact.
Alright, so right now we got most of the electrical connections off of the car. We got the radiator out. Once again, all of this stuff is out. And all of the header bolts are actually loose, but we're struggling to get the EGR tube off. So we're going to try to cut it, we think. We need that out of here, and that's not something that I'm going to reuse down the line. So we basically need that off so we could move forward with this. Alright, we've reached a very important stage of pulling this motor, and that is actually hooking up our engine hoist. Right now we're pretty sure we have everything disconnected. It's taken us a few hours here, but we're pretty sure that we're ready to go. So we're going to attempt to lift this out, and we'll see how that goes. right, and with that, we got the motor out of the car. We did make a few little mistakes pulling the thing out. We did leave the shifter on there, so we really had to angle this back, and that was dragging on the tunnel a bit of the way out. This was actually our first engine pull for both of us, so we think we did a pretty decent job. I mean, the engine's out. It didn't even take us the complete day, so I'd say we're pretty happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
So now that this thing's out, we're just going to set it down for storage on some Hoosiers that Matt has for his track day, bro. And then we're going to work on actually getting the K stuff ready. So next up, we're going to be prepping the K motor, doing some maintenance things, installing the KMiata oil pan and the oil pump, and anything else that we're doing on that?
We can throw the flywheel on, get the clutch and pressure plate on, actually get the trans on before we shove it back in.
Yeah, that's true.
Do as much as we can while it's out of the car, so it'll be so much easier.
Yeah, so that will be the next episode. If you want to see that right now, go ahead over to my Patreon. I'll have that edited there so you could see it. If you want to wait, the next episode will be live on my YouTube channel in a little bit. But yeah, we're pretty happy. We can't wait to be hitting VTEC in this Miata. We hope you can't wait too. So don't forget to like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Take care.